what episode is it? 461, Mark. Gee whiz, man. We're cranking them out. Appreciate you jumping on with us again.
Hey, thanks for having me. I always enjoy doing this, guys, especially just prior to the season.
Well, this is your favorite podcast, right? If you ask Matt.
It is. It is my favorite podcast.
Well, we appreciate you saying
that. About that. I don't deny that. And here we are doing something with the video, right? This is different for you guys?
Yeah, this is our first time in the new studio trying a video call with our new recording equipment. So if all works out, if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, there is going to be a video version as long as our equipment doesn't catch on fire. So don't hold me to it, but it's working right now. So we're good.
Good. Well, this is the first thing I've done officially in our new home here in West Des Moines. So I get to show off the wall, you know, that we had put in, and
it looks great.
This is my little man cave studio down here. So
it looks awesome down there. I mean, how many bucks you got back there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 studs?
Not enough. That's my patented answer.
It looks good, man. Looks real good. So, but no, thanks for coming. We got a ton of compliments and still are, especially last year we did episode 380, and that was like the summer scouting episode we did with you. And we had so much response to that podcast. It's probably the #1 podcast that we've done where we get people commenting and saying they listen more than once to take notes.
I'll be doggone. That's awesome.
So
that's cool. Well, maybe we can talk about some stuff today that we didn't hit last summer, and, you know, get everybody fired up for deer season.
Yeah. And you and I talked a little bit. I want to do a technical type podcast again, but I don't want to dive into summer scouting because I feel like we covered it so much in last year's episode that I feel like we would just cover the same material because it still applies.
Certainly it applies. Yes. I mean, every summer is different based on, you know, food rotation and what type rainfall and stuff you get. But the basis of what we covered in that was, I think, pretty thorough. And we went down some rabbit trails as well within that one, and I'm sure we will today as well. So
of course, that's what we do best.
Absolutely.
That's what we're good at.
We pave rabbit trails.
Just all over the place.
That's why we're still around, I think. But one thing, you know, I want to talk about this before, because you say that you're maybe more passionate about turkeys than you are whitetails, which I find crazy, but that's what you're into.
I am. I really am. If the flight wasn't so long to New Zealand, I'd go there in the fall. And I'm not joking. I like to deer hunt. I really do. But I love turkey hunting. I mean, it was my first love. It's still my true love. And I'm just very passionate about it. You know, I'm glad that deer and turkey come at different times of the year because you don't have to decide. I mean, you could go fall turkeying, but it's spring turkey hunting that I'm in love with. So
yeah. No, that makes sense. Well, this past season, I think, was tough for a lot of people, more so, and rumors flying for people who didn't experience it about the turkey population being down. We hear about it more in Iowa, which is right where you're at, but I've heard kind of everywhere it's down. What's your take on that?
It is, and it's multifactorial. You talk to one guy, you hear one opinion, and you talk to 10 other guys, you might get 10 different opinions. But I think there's a lot of things that are really working against the wild turkey these days. Certainly habitat loss in a lot of places. And I don't mean from, like, you know, construction or homes and whatnot, but in general, they reduced the CRP acres by about 25% about 3 or 4 years ago. So if you erase all that and you take all of that and put it back in production, I mean, that's a big number across the country. The nest predation, I think, is probably one of the biggest issues. Back when the turkeys were really on the rise in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, there were still a lot of people trapping, and you didn't have the population of nest predators that you do right now. The coons and possums and skunks just smoke them, man.
Yeah.
Couple that with some really wet weather, and not only just wet springs, but torrential downpours the last few springs, a lot of flooding in prime turkey areas. But more importantly than the flooding, just wet springs where the poults get wet. It's not healthy for them. They put off more scent. They're more easily, you know, susceptible to predators. I have my own theories in addition to some of those factors. You also look at hunting pressure. Hunting tactics have changed. Used to be that the big male dominant gobblers that were doing a lot of the breeding would take care of themselves, because predominantly to kill one, you had to call one in. Well, henned up turkeys take care of themselves. They generally don't get killed for the most part. These days, with the advent of fanning and reaping, I think it's made turkey hunters a little more effective on those birds that have hens with them.
Yeah.
And so if you take out that dominant mating gobbler, there's a lot of studies out there that show some of those hens then don't go find another bird or don't have a bird to replace him to do their breeding. So Dr. Chamberlain talks a great deal about that. I've been in communication with Dr. Woods over the last probably month and a half, and we've been talking about all the effects that all the things that have changed in agriculture over the last 10 years. If you look at what farmers are putting on their fields right now for herbicides and pesticides, a lot of these products didn't exist 10 years ago. You know, there's some things that they had to remedy with certain weeds and certain bugs, and they're just a lot stronger. Couple that with the seed coats. You know, there's a lot of suspicion about those seed coats harming the insect population, harming the songbirds, the honeybees. You know, people in Canada and Europe have been screaming about the seed coats that have the pesticides in it. It's systemic, so it goes throughout the plant, and it's not just the seed that's coated, it's then the leaves and the roots, and then the, you know, the corn or the beans, whatever comes off of it. So if you add all that up, you can see it's been a perfect storm over the last 10 to 15 years where you're starting to see populations really decline. I hear others say that in the Southeast, it's the, you know, the chicken manure that gets put on fields, it's spreading disease to turkeys. So it's concerning with what's going on. And I don't know how you turn all this around. You know, certainly, you know, the awareness is going to help turn it around. But, you know, if it is big ag, that's the big factor, which I personally in my heart wonder if that might not be it. It's like, man, we've seen such a decline in the last 5 to 10 years. And in my mind, I'm like, what's changed? Agriculture's changed a great deal in the last 5 to 10, particularly with the sprays and stuff that we're using. So if that's the case, you know, how do you get that turned around? You know,
that's a good point.
The CRP thing, they are turning around. They're putting more acres in right now. So, you know, perhaps there's going to be some additional habitat out there.
That's interesting. The farm, I think once you can prove that it's big ag, I feel like a lot of companies like save face would pull the oh shit, I hope, and then maybe change some things. I mean, you'd think they would, because it's the environment, it's wildlife, and that stuff really matters.
Perhaps
that on them.
We don't have proof of that. So, you know, I don't want all the people in the ag industry, you know, writing or calling going, what the hell are you talking about? I'm just throwing
their theories
out there that could be multifactorial. You know, could it be? That's the way I look at it. Like, what if it is that? You know, how do you fix it? But do I know that for a fact? I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
It's a good theory. I mean, and I like that you brought up maybe like the higher pressure of hunters. I mean, I guess we could probably blame YouTube of people trying to reap turkeys and do kind of unorthodox things that are effective. I've never done that, but I know there's a big hard opinion. I feel like from what I see, if I look from outside the turkey game, looking in, there's guys that are against the whole turkey reaping, high pressure type hunting, and guys that are more the traditional style, call them into you as part of what turkey hunting is.
Right. You know, and I see that debate, and, you know, I try to do things in a common sense approach whenever we're turkey hunting. And here we are, we're going down this first rabbit trail of turkeys in our deer podcast. But when I approach a situation, like if I go in the farm and the numbers are down, I'm just not going to be as aggressive in there. Or we walked away from a bunch of breeding gobblers with hens this spring, and we were like, let's let him alone, man. Don't go fan him. Let him go. You know, go try to find a bird that's by himself, or a group of 2-year-olds or something like that. So we try to use it in a common sense approach. So regardless of what tactics you use, I think you still have to manage your turkeys just like you manage deer. You know, if you're not hearing what you want to hear, then don't go in there and go killing them. And I've reached out and tried to gain more access in different places. We're traveling farther to get to birds in and around my Missouri and Iowa camps, so that we're not stressing all the different farms we hunt. And it really worked, because turkey permission is still available. It's hard to get deer permission, but once in a while you can get lucky and get some turkey permission, or perhaps a short-term lease on turkeys that won't kill the budget or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree with that around here in Illinois as well. It's easier to find. People just don't care as much about turkeys because they don't have antlers. But no, I'm glad we covered that. It's a big topic around here. People talking about how tough it was, and I mean, we had you on a late night turkey camp podcast, and you guys were having a killer season. We're all moping around. Yeah. You're like, no, it's all right.
We did have a good season, but I got a lot of spots to hunt, and if they're not working here, I move over there, and we put on a lot of miles. But I work hard at getting my turkey spots lined up so that I've got enough birds to hunt during the spring. So and I've been doing that for many years. Like we manage our turkeys harder than we do our deer, and we do a lot of habitat improvement. We do a lot of predator control, and I think it's showing. And the silver lining to this whole conversation, like I'm hearing decent reports about hatches here in the Midwest. Certainly today I was on the farm, and myself, Wade, and Perry were out checking some food plots, and we saw a couple of hens with 6, 8, 10 little ones. I talked to Casey Morgan last night. He saw a couple of hens with like close to 20 little ones. Wade saw a couple of hens the other day. He thought were 12 to 15 little ones. Awesome. Mike Miller, our game warden here in Clark and Decatur County in Iowa, said he's seeing quite a few young birds. So I think it'd be interesting for you to put it out to your listeners to see what people are seeing and get a poll count from different parts of the country, because we did have a really dry period here in the Midwest from like May the 15th through June the 15th. And I think that it's right in the hatch, so that probably helped them a little bit,
Well, maybe we'll put something in like, once this gets posted on Facebook or Instagram, maybe comment in there what you're seeing for your hatch or turkey numbers, and we can kind of just roughly survey that. Now I'm glad we talked about that because it's super important. I think too, when you brought up like the, what'd you call them? Nest predators like raccoons. I was just talking to someone the other day. They should make raccoon season year round.
They should. I agree 100%.
I can't believe they haven't.
I think they should. If you want to help the wild turkey, I think you almost have to. But I'm not a biologist, and I'm sure there's reasons not to. I don't know what they are. That's not my gig. But I think there's a lot of hunters, pushing a lot of different DNRs throughout the country going, look, this problem's been here for a little bit. We've got to start reacting to it in some way. And we've seen some states do that. I heard Oklahoma's going to a 1 bird limit in the spring. Alabama reduced their overall harvest regulations in the spring. And I think you'll see other states do the same thing. So the awareness is starting to come about, especially through social media, and just hunters going, where the hell did all the turkeys go? There's a lot of places where they're in dire straits right now. And I mean, we got to figure it out some way, shape, or form, but it's going to take more than just reducing the harvest, right? It's going to take a lot more than that.
I don't think I would be mad if they made raccoon season year round, because I think I hit one with my truck like probably once a week. I live in the country, and it is insane how many raccoons that live out here.
It's insanity how many there are right now. Insanity.
I can't believe that there's not, I mean, I'm sure there is crazy diseases going on, but you almost need to just put a bounty on them again.
Well, you would think at some point they would get distemper or something and reduce their population. Deer have EHD, the wild turkey population gets blackhead, and at some point, when do the raccoons get their big disease that wipes them out? So
the trash pandas are resilient.
Yeah, they're tough.
We get like 40-pound raccoons out here in the Midwest. Like something's got to happen. That's a problem. Especially for crop damage too,
It is. It's an issue. I mean, you see them walking around the daylight out in the fields and stuff in the spring. It's like every time you see a wild turkey in the woods, it's a walking miracle. That's the way I always say it, because they've got so many things against them.
Everything's against them, Especially like think about being like a hatchling. You got hawks. That's the scariest thing.
Terrible. How'd you like to be a baby wild turkey?
It'd be the worst.
It'd be terrible.
It would be the absolute worst. Like you have to worry about death from above all the time.
All the time, man.
All the time.
That's my uncle growing up. I shot a turkey in the fall out of a tree stand one time, and he was like, "No, you didn't." I was like, "Yeah, I did." He's like, "No, you didn't." He goes, "Think about it. A wild turkey is worried about hawks from the time it hatches." I'm like, "I got lucky, okay?" But he's giving me shit a little bit, But he's like, "Think about that."
They are hard to get drawn on.
Almost impossible. You have to get lucky.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
But let's talk about deer a little bit. Well,
let's do it, man.
we talked about deer on that summer scouting episode so extensively, from like pressure and to trail cams. I mean, we covered about everything we could cover, I think. But what I think would be cool, talk about a little bit, and you and I kind of brainstorm together, is talk maybe not so much about deer, but your mental prep for the deer going into season, or your physical prep, or whatever it may be, because that most times is just as important as working your way around the tactics for the deer in a strategic way.
I think so. I think the preparation we do for our own game is very, very important. You can never practice the moment of truth because you can't practice adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
I've read articles and stuff. I remember when I was younger, guys would say, run a 100-yard dash and then take a shot. It gets you, and that probably there's some merit to that. So if it works for you, great. But it's very hard to practice adrenaline, and adrenaline screws so many different situations up. Like if you look back at the mistakes you've made when hunting, where you really just, after the moment's over and you calm down, you go, how did I do that? Right? Because you could stand there on the range and hit, the top of a pop can all the way out to 100 yards, and then a deer walks by at 15 and you miss high right by 2 feet. It's like,
and
this is impossible.
Sometimes you don't even remember looking through your peep.
Right.
Yeah,
and you're like,
don't remember what happened.
Yeah, you're like, did I even look through my peep, or did I just draw back and fling one? Like adrenaline is tough. You can't duplicate it.
Yeah, practice it. So I always try to, most importantly, make sure you're in great physical shape before you go deer hunting. And I'm not talking about hitting the gym and, looking like
Austin,
Wade or Perry or these guys, like these guys they're specimens,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that my shoulders are in great shape. When I work out, like I work out on my cardio to make sure that I can breathe and do all that good stuff. And then I work out on pulling a bow and make sure that I can hold a bow at a long range and take a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I work on small things that revolve around the bow hunt.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of walking, and I do a lot of, stuff with my shoulders because I have a bad left shoulder. So, I remember a few seasons ago, before I discovered what it was and got to the right doctor who told me how to fix it, I have a biceps tendonitis in my left shoulder, and I just couldn't draw weight. Right. And I was like, what was going on? And I hunted that fall in the mid 40s. Like the year I killed Bucktober, I was shooting like 46, 47 pounds.
No kidding.
Nothing. Yes. And so it goes to show you, and the reason I knew I could is because I had seen Taylor graduate from 30 up to that range, and I'm like, if he's getting this penetration, I'll get it because I have a longer draw.
Right.
So, I went to a doctor and I'm like, how do I fix this? And I got a bunch of exercises I do with weights, like hold it out here and then there, and go all through all these things. You can look it up and look at bicep tendonitis and look at the cures for it, and it will show you what to do with free weights in a real slow fashion to fix those things and make you stronger. And I'm in my mid 50s now. I don't have the strength I once did when I was your guys' age. So I work on things to make sure that I can still shoot. And I still don't shoot a lot of weight. I shoot in the mid to high 50s right now.
Yeah.
But I work on that a lot. And then I try to work on like the mental side of things in terms of like the mistakes I've made in years past. Like, when you make a mistake, if you have to write it down, or if you can mentally put it away in your mind so that you can go back to it and go, yes, I screwed that up when that deer came in, and I screwed this up, I screwed that up, and go through that mental checklist ahead of the season many, many times so that you can avoid that in the moment of truth. Because again, you can't practice adrenaline. It's going to take over. It's going to try and, it's the devil on your left shoulder going, oh, we're going to shoot high here. And you're going to shoot when the deer's facing you instead of broadside. And like, think through those scenarios. And when I watch TV shows, like I'm thinking through the hunt scene, regardless of whose show it is, like, what would I do right now? When would I draw? When would I shoot? When would I stop the animal? Like, I think you can't practice those types of enough because we go through so much preparation financially, mentally, physically, spiritually,
time,
fighting with your significant other, whatever it is, for that moment of truth. Make sure you're prepared mentally for that moment of truth. And the best way to do that is prepare and over prepare. so
Right.
that when you get into game day, muscle memory takes over. You can slow the game down, and you are ready for that moment of truth.
Yeah.
And
I
I
love
think
that.
the rust comes in from season to season. We were talking yesterday about your early season hunt out there, and was it Wyoming you said you were going to?
Yep. Going to Wyoming.
You know, your first shot of the season might be at a giant, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like you can't prepare for that. At least in the Midwest, we shoot does. We start the season off
Yeah.
just pounding does, right?
Yeah. I got one tag.
The adrenaline's still the same. So you want to get through those repetitions. It'll make you a better shot on bucks. You've got one tag.
Yeah.
I think you have to prepare even more so to get ready for that one shot, you know, because chances are you're only going to get one shot, if that, you know.
Yeah. And honestly, Mark, one thing I like that you said that I want to touch on and that I feel has helped me a lot in like my process of like killing deer is anyone that's been to the studio or seen photos, you see my DVD collection, all the Drury DVDs, all the Real Tree DVDs. Matt sent me a bunch that I didn't have, like a bunch that I was missing. So I challenge anyone to bring their DVD and VHS hunting video collection against mine. I will beat you. And if you can beat me, I want to see it, because that's got to be, you have to be insane. But I think like you get to study, and you know, one, you get to see like the deer coming in, and then you get to see a shot, where a shot is. And like similar now, like DeerCast track has replaced a ton of that. But that process then, like even like just like the Monster Bucks DVDs, it wasn't the story. It was just kill after process after process after process. So I watched a ton of those. But going back to is like, you know, the mental game, running that through your head, visualizing. Like when I lay in bed every night, I'm pretty much thinking about the process of the buck I've been hunting coming in. If he comes in from this side of the spot I'm going to in the morning, how am I going to get ready, or that type of thing, you know, trying to visualize.
When to draw back, when to.
Right. Like you're like, okay, I know you know what I mean? You're like, you're mapping it all out in your head. Well, this Friday, actually, this is one thing that, and this is a physical thing, not a muscle physical thing, but my vision is to the point where I got to do something to get glasses and contacts and stuff. And I'm noticing when I'm shooting at 60 yards, I'm more guessing where the dot is on the target. And I'm like, this has to change, because if I go to Wyoming and like you said, I'm shooting at a monster and say he's 65 yards because that's all I can get, I want to be able to practice with good vision and know that I'm dead nuts on at 60 yards or whatever it may be. And I think the one thing that's keeping me from being more accurate at long range is my vision. So I'm going this Friday and I'm going to get glasses and contacts. I'll wear contacts, right? But I'm going to just hopefully that helps me a ton. I'm really excited about it, actually.
You know, this reminds me of one of Terry's favorite sayings. Like, if I start complaining about an ache or a pain, or, you know, like you said, your vision, like he always says, look at it this way, it just gets worse. Right. He's 10 years older than me, you know? So, and it's the truth. Like I'm telling you right now, like these problems continue to haunt you and get worse through as you age. I think about how I reacted and how I hunted when I was in my mid 20s through, say, 40 versus, you know, mid 40s through now I'm in my mid 50s. And then I look at the way Terry's hunting now, you know, he took a fall back in 18, which further banged him up a little bit, you know, and you have things happen to you in life that slow you down, but your passion doesn't slow down. Like you still want to go and you still want to make good shots and ethical shots. And you have to overcome whatever happens to you in your life, you know, whether you don't have the time to practice that you used to, or whether you've had an injury to an arm, or that the more I do this, and the more people I talk to, I have a lot of people come up and go, I'm having the same trouble with my shoulder. And a lot of it's from shooting for so many years. I started shooting when I was 13, 14 years old, you know, and now I'm in my 50s. I've been shooting for 40 years. That's a lot of repetitions on every muscle that you use. And I shoot a lot, you know, and I've had to bring that weight down to make sure that I can still shoot comfortably and shoot accurately. And I think even your shooting regiment, we're talking about preparing for the season. Like when I'm shooting a target, like I'm not just shooting to shoot dots, like I'm shooting to kill an animal in my mind. You were talking about visualizing it. Like if I'm shooting at even if it's a morel, you know, target out there that's spots, I still envision a deer standing there, and I still envision that arrow going through that deer side. I don't think you can mentally gear up enough for the moment of truth so that when it occurs, it's not a surprise, and I
Right.
think that's what happens sometimes as hunters, like, because it happens so infrequently. If you think about the last 10 years, how many shots have you had? It's not a bunch.
It's not a
No.
ton. And that's also a good point too, is like you see guys that are new hunters like 2, 3, 4 years in, and they're all of a sudden like an influencer. And it's funny because you're like, man, you can't know. I don't know anything if you break it down that way. So like new guys in, it's like, man, it takes so long, and just being in that moment to really learn it. Like you can think you know it, but you don't actually know it until you've done it years and years and years and years. And I'm sure you can attest to that. You can still screw up even if you think you know it and you've done it for 40 years.
Dude, I had the worst year shooting last fall that I've had probably ever. I really was so frustrated with my performance last year. And I do all this preparation, and in my mind, I'm like, geez, am I losing it here with age or whatever? And
Yeah.
I'm like, I got so mad at myself. My last 2 or 3 shots were great, and I'm like, I think it's a little bit of mental acuity that I've lost as I've aged, and I'm not focused like I need to be, and I kick myself in the tail when I make a bad shot on a whitetail, because, I'm kind of used to making decent shots,
Right. Right.
and then I'm like, this is not right, so I got on the range and I started shooting more and more and more, and figured out what I did. I started watching video of what I was doing with my hand, and I have a bad habit when I get excited to grip the bow, right? You want to grip whatever the hell you can when you're excited like that.
Right.
And if you go on the range and you shoot like you normally do with an open hand, and then grip it, if you're a right-handed shooter, I shoot high right every time.
Yeah.
By a bunch, and that's what I was doing. And I started putting stuff on the front of my riser so that I could feel it when I gripped. I actually took an old piece of carpet, how scratchy it is,
Yeah.
and I taped it to the front of my riser. And I was like, then I started letting it go, because it reminded me to quit gripping your damn riser. So
Interesting.
it's all about correcting what you're doing wrong. And that's why I was saying, preparation for that first shot of the season. Like, I would urge you or anyone out there, think of everything you've done wrong in the last 5, 10, 15 years, however long you've been hunting. Write a list down. I screwed this, and this up. And then if it's fresh in your mind, you'll remember not to make that mistake again, because you forget
Yep.
things,
Yep. Definitely.
I was talking to Levi yesterday, and we were talking about this problem, and I said, I know you and Josh are working on that tape. Could you come up with something for the front end of a riser? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one that grips the hell out of your bow and then makes a bad shot. And he was like, Josh and I have actually been talking about doing something like that.
Like a trainer or some kind.
Well, this, like his nose button, it has those spikes on it or whatever. He goes,
Yeah.
you can actually glue those on the front and feel those. And that's what I want. Something that hurts when it touches it, so that you immediately let go. Because when I'm open palm, I shoot well, but when I close, I shoot drastically off.
Just put a razor blade on the front of their mark, and then you'll know.
I'm ready for needles, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
It's unacceptable to hit an animal poorly because of you can't control your own emotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's my opinion of it. Like, I was really mad at myself last fall. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Archery is such a mental game. And so, like, my thing with archery is, I immediately want to go back and shoot long range. And I got my bow. I retuned my bow in after I did like the first, 200-300 shots through it. Kind of went through and did some bare shaft tuning yesterday afternoon, actually. And then, so what I'm going to do now is go in and just bury the 20-30 yard shots until I'm just so confident there that I can't stand it. And then the next week, I'm going to go back and do the 40-50 yard shots until I'm so confident there that I can't stand it. And then I'm going to go back 20 more yards, and then go back another 10-15 yards, and just get confident at no matter what I got to do. And then I'm going to practice like my steep angles for Wyoming. But what I'll do after a certain point, because mentally, I'm aiming at a 2-inch dot at 60 yards, and I might be just outside the dot and I feel like I'm missing. I'll start aiming at 3D targets and going, like you said, going for kill shots where I want that arrow. And I feel like that makes me way more confident.
Mhm.
And then I perform better because I feel so good about how I'm shooting, and I'm not stressing out about missing a Sharpie mark on a target at 60 yards. And you know what I mean? For me, that helps me a ton. So I'm going to go to get back to that point this summer is my goal.
I think that's wise. A long time ago, I was watching like one of the early Quest videos, and they had this archery training guy on there, and he made a comment that stuck with me forever. He goes, if you're practicing on the range, whatever you're comfortable at, cut that in half for your hunting effective range. In other words, if you want to be really effective at 20, 30, and 40 while you're deer hunting, then make sure you are proficient at 40, 60, and 80 when you're practicing.
Right.
You know, so I've always stuck with that. And that has really helped me. If you force yourself to shoot well at 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 yards, then you're going to be fishing a barrel when you're in there at 15, 20, and 30 yards. So
yeah,
I've always spent a lot of time at long distance practicing. I think that is
fun.
It is of vital importance to shoot at long distances and become proficient at those distances.
That's why we talk so much about like single pin sights, especially at longer distance. And I like the single pin for two reasons with the HHAs. One, it's easier to aim at longer distance because you don't have all the pins clustering your field of view. But then what I like is it forces me to live by my rangefinder. And I like that because I'm not like pin gapping. I'm taking my time. I'm shooting for the yardage my target is at. And a lot of people are concerned with like, what happens if it moves? You know, like I literally have my loopholes with the rangefinder right next to it on my chest all the time. I do not go anywhere without it. So I'm always click, click, always, and I'm right on my dial. It takes a little bit to get used to, but we talk about that so much, and that's like the main concerns we get. But I live by my rangefinder. I don't care if it sounds tough or not tough to say that you guess yardage. I want to know if it's 33 yards. I want to be able to shoot it at 33, not 30, and then aim a little high.
Certainly. And I shoot an HHA single pin as well.
Yeah.
And I divide the pin up to top edge, center, and bottom edge.
Yeah.
And I leave it set at about 20 yards. And then, you know, if they're closer than that, I use the top edge. If they're at 20, I use the center, and the bottom edge of that will take me out to 30. So most of my shots, I don't ever readjust, you know?
Yeah.
So that's something you can do is use the different parts of the pin because it is different.
Yeah, I haven't done that, but normally what I end up doing is finding out what does Scott Bakken call it? I always forget the terminology he uses. I basically call it like where my pin falls out. So if I have it set at 20, I'll step back to like 25, 30 to where it's like, you know, if it's a huge drastic change, I'm like, oh, I know I can't use my 20 yard on a 33 yard shot. I have to roll it to, you know, I got to roll it down a little bit, or HHA has a ton of good videos on their YouTube that kind of breaks it down on how to set your pen and with your sight tape and stuff like that. They did a pretty good job with that. So if there's any concerns about a single pin for anyone listening, they got you covered there. They'll make you feel comfortable about it.
They do indeed. And if you're not comfortable with a single pin, shoot the multi-pin and go whatever you're most comfortable with. I'll say that. Don't, just because we're talking about a single pin, don't get off of what you're used to. If you're very proficient with a multiple pin sight, don't worry about it. Go kill them, you know?
Yeah, don't panic and change halfway through all your practicing and then have to start over.
Don't change it before October.
And you know, that goes for any type of gear. If you're comfortable with a certain type of release aid, I like a finger release aid that's pulling the trigger, you know, a caliper style. You know, a lot of guys shoot the back tension releases, you know, but just because you see somebody doing something, do what works for you. And make sure you try a lot of different things, find the one that you're most accurate with, and then stick with it and make yourself more accurate, you know?
Yeah. I shoot a hybrid. Like we get asked that a ton what we use, because I feel like I'm punchy with the caliper when I get like that adrenaline dump. I feel like I tend to like, jump, and I kind of flinch, like, I just dump that out. But I use like it's a back tension, but it's on a release strap. So I pull it back while holding the strap, and then I put my hands on it. So it's kind of like half a back tension release, I guess. It's the Scott Hex is what it's called.
Right on. Yeah. Whatever works.
Yeah, that's my cure for slowing me down, because it's got a click. So like I'll get to, I use a kisser, and then I'll squeeze to my click and then pull through from the click.
Absolutely.
That keeps me calm.
I'm still using the finger. So
I think they're great, but I'm an idiot, so I shoot shoot the hex.
If you're going to shoot a caliper, make sure you get a deep grip with it so that it's a pull rather than a punch.
Yeah,
If you use the tip of your finger, you're going to punch it. If you use the center, your meaty part of your finger, it's a pull.
gotcha. That's a good tip. Is that what you do, Doug?
Yeah.
Okay, are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just checking. Let's see if Doug's still awake over here.
No, I'm good.
But no, I think the mental game, archery is mental, and I think mental preparation, like going from the shooting process to practice, is obviously probably most important, and then visualizing. But I think even as little as like sticking to your goals of, if you have a target buck, is like trying to maybe stick with that mental goal, like that's what you want to go after, instead of like letting your adrenaline dump go and then you shoot a buck you didn't have. I mean, maybe not as important, because whatever you shoot, you should be happy. But does that make sense a little bit, what I'm trying to get to?
Oh yeah, that's part of the mental game, right? Like, like how set are you on the plan? It's like,
Right.
first of all, do you have a plan? And then how married are you to the plan? And some of that probably will be dictated by time and energy and that type of stuff. But
Of course,
we're lucky in the fact that we get to hunt a lot in the fall. So, if I've got a target, it's generally going to be that buck or not at all, or maybe multiple targets or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good play to stick with the game plan and try to ride it through to the end of the season. That there was a guy I hunted last year in Missouri that just drove me crazy. Never did kill him. Hunted him from September 15th all the way to January 15th. Didn't kill him. Drove me nuts. Drove me batty.
So did you ever have like the mental urge to like shoot a lesser deer from frustration, or maybe like, no?
No, I mean, I shot one early that came in really well during the rut because I didn't have the right winds to hunt this other buck. And I have buck tags, and I shot a real nice 9-point, but I knew that second tag was, and I had been hunting the other buck exclusively, and then I didn't have the wind, and I went to another spot and killed a real nice mature 9-point. But other than that, there was no way I was shooting another deer. And if he's around this year, I won't shoot another one, at least with one of the tags.
Right. I want to ask you this, and you can tell me to kick rocks if you'd like. Like, I feel like that's fair. Because you have a high profile show and you guys have been around, I mean, do you feel the pressure on you to have to kill a deer for the show? Or like, would you wait out and not kill deer on the show for a while and just be like, because it builds a story? You know what I mean?
No, I guess, yeah, there's pressure to make sure that you do things right and well, and set the right examples, and we try to live by that. But in terms of shooting a particular animal, that's a personal like feeling that comes from inside. So no, I'm not going to go out and shoot a deer that's just for TV. Like I think Tom Ware said it best. I heard him say this line about 3 or 4 years ago on Bo Manus. He said, "Your heart will always guide you in the right direction when it comes to, is this a shooter or not?" Right. So let your heart be that detector for you. Don't let your mind go, well, that would look good on Instagram, I'm going to shoot that deer. No, if your heart's going bonkers and you're like, that's a shooter, oh my goodness, I can't wait to hopefully get a chance at that deer, then I think that's a very good rule to live by. Like, your heart kind of does let you know when it's happening, right? It just does. There's certain deer you see and you go, well, that's pretty, that's nice, and then the next one you see is, oh my God, here he is, and your heart lets you know. So
that's a good answer. I mean, I figured that was the case, but I had to ask it. But no, I love that answer, because I feel that's what gets a lot of people with shows in trouble, is because it's almost really not for the right reason, or it ends up changing down the road to not be for the right reasons anymore. I don't know, from a viewer. I
think that there is at times a disconnect, even within our stuff. Hunting is such an emotional thing, right? It's an emotional sport in all aspects. And sometimes there is a disconnect between the emotion you feel in the field and what ends up airing. Maybe it's the wrong music choice, or someone said something incorrect and it got used, or an editor's choice of a certain scene that sometimes I think causes a disconnect, that it is not intended to be that way. It is very hard to portray what you're feeling as a hunter whenever it comes onto TV. I've noticed that. So we
Yeah.
try very hard through the narrative and the music and the moment and the footage and the way that we edit to make sure that it number one shows the ultimate respect for the animal, and number two also shows that it was an emotional decision and an emotional moment to take that animal's life.
Yeah.
So it's just very hard to portray. We
Mhm.
do our very best at it, but I will say I've seen other stuff that leaves me scratching my head at times. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
What the heck?
I go, what the heck? But who am I to judge? We could only do what we feel is right at Drury
Yeah.
Outdoors and portray the sport in the way that we feel it should be portrayed. And we have a saying, make it about them, not us. We try to make it about the animal and the viewer and not ourselves. And if we live by that rule, make it about them, not us. And I think that's helped guide us through several years of doing this.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, that's why you guys have stood out. I think, you know, it's the direction and basically the theme of the whole show. It's not, you know, look at us, we're awesome and we're killing these deer. It's like you're showcasing certain animals. And I just like the whole painting the story of like all the deer behind you that you've killed. You know, it's when you we were watching them in the studio the other night. We had the fight party for the McGregor fight, and we were watching the old Boontown, and we're all just like gawking over like the bucks coming in. That's part of the fun of watching the videos. Like I'm a true fan of all DVDs, hunting DVDs and stuff like that. So maybe I'm a little more opinionated because I grew up watching a bunch. So there's certain things I like and don't like, but no, you guys do a killer job. So
well, I appreciate that. And I'm a fan too. You know, I love watching. I used to buy every Monster Bucks video that was ever made, and I'd sit there and watch them all. And I bought all the Quest ones, and you know, I can remember the Gene Winsel and Barry Winsel when they first came out with their stuff. I watched all that, and
yeah,
every turkey video I could get my hands on, I watched all that, and you know, I was truly just enamored with just the game and the way it was portrayed, and I'm still that way. I watch Outdoor Channel all the time, and YouTube. I go on there, Instagram. If I see content, I watch it. You know, I'm still a junkie about it, man. I love watching wildlife. I think it's amazing. And there are some people these days that do things so incredibly well. There is some beautifully shot stuff in terms of the cinematography, the storytelling. I mean, there are some really epic stuff out there right now. And there's some really rough stuff, but there is some beautiful stuff. And I think the consumer's pretty good at sorting out the difference between the two.
Definitely. Oh yeah, I definitely think so. Is there anything that you think in the mental side of things, you know, talking about like from shot processing to visualizing to just maybe tweaking stuff, whether it's a muscle or your vision, is there anything that we're missing there to get prepared if you want to hunt a big buck or just anything, whatever you want to hunt, really?
We talked about a lot of it in terms of make sure your muscle memory is there and make sure you shoot as much as you possibly can, but not too much. I think there's a happy medium between I'm shooting really well and holy crap, I'm fatigued and my pattern just went like that. And that's when I try to put the bow down and come back to it in another day or two. I let my muscles relax and recuperate, and then come back and shoot again. So I shoot often, but I don't shoot a lot when I do shoot, if that makes sense. Like I like to shoot 6 to 20 arrows every day if I can. I also avoid wind at all costs. I will not shoot in the wind because it gets in your mind. You can't shoot well if I'm trying to sight in. I avoid wind. Once I'm on, I will intentionally go shoot in the wind and practice my drifts, especially like if I'm going up to Alberta or if I were going to Wyoming, I would practice some drifts in different wind speeds at different distances. I think it's very important to understand what wind does to a shaft at 40, 50, 60 yards at 10, 20, 30 mile an hour. So I would advise you, once you feel like you're in tip-top form and you're pounding that circle, start practicing in different conditions. If you're going to hunt out of a box blind, practice out of a box blind. If you're hunting out of a tree stand, practice out of a tree stand. If you're hunting in windy conditions out west in a spot and stock situation, do that. Start practicing from elevated hills, shooting down into a creek. Whatever you can do to emulate the exact scenario you're going to be in just makes you that much better once you're there. Definitely. And then once you get in that position, slow that game down. I talk about it all the time in our shows. Jim Tomey told me that years ago. Here's a guy that's Hall of Fame, 612 home runs. Imagine the pressure of people in stands, 40,000 people screaming at you and taking a 95-mile-an-hour slider out of the ballpark, right?
Yeah.
He has the uncanny ability to slow the game down. And I think if I hear his voice in my ear anytime I'm about to shoot an animal, slow the game down. And if you just give yourself a little mental checklist like that, when the moment comes, you're probably going to slow it down. Take that extra second to aim. Don't shoot if your sight's doing this all over the animal. Like, cuss yourself out if it helps, right? It's like, you're screwing this up right now, fix it fast, and then settle in and then take the shot. So slow the game down, talk to yourself, and make sure you talk yourself through those moments.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. I tried to do that. I visualize it. I try to do it, but I feel like I get better at it the more I do it, of course.
Yeah.
But there is still some times where I feel I've done that and I've got it. Like my kisser, I have like my shot process with the click, like I talked about. That helps me slow down and make sure, check the box, kisser, you're here you are, your peep, everything's lined up. Like I kind of check through that way, but I get sometimes where you just get so jacked up. It's been a few years, but I know that if I'm not prepared, if I start to get cocky, then I'll slip and I'll end up back into doing the what the hell happened, I hit high type of situation. But it's hard to do that when you're so excited and you get a deer coming in, but that's where the visualizing comes into play. But it's such an intense moment. Like you said, it's almost like being in a fight, like in a way. I've been using the term like I'm training now with my bow like I'm going into a fight. And I think that's a good way to put it, because the fight, like let's just use the McGregor-Poirier fight we just watched. How long does McGregor train for the one night? And if he screws up, he's got a broken leg to heal now. And then once that's fixed, now he has to go back to training. And all he can think about is visualizing not getting beat up by the other guy and coming out with a win. Kind of the same thing in a way. Like for my Wyoming hunt, I have from now until the first week of September to either mentally psych myself out and mess this up, or to overcome it and mentally get strong with it and practice the right way and visualize the right way. And it is a lot of pressure. Like I feel it.
It is, because more than likely weather will take about half your days away every year. I always say that weather will take 30 to 50% of your days away, where it's just crap weather. They don't move. You don't get a chance. And then when you finally do get a chance, are you going to have multiple chances? Hell no. You're not going to go to Wyoming and have 3 or 4 shots. I would just about bet, unless it's an incredible place. Most hunts come down to execution of the shot at your 1 or 2 chances that you're going to have.
Yeah.
Stoltz said that years ago. Another quote that, I mentioned so many quotes that things stick with me. He said that years ago. He goes, the difference between a good season and a bad season is making those 1 or 2 shots that you were presented with. Because you're not going to have many shots this fall. That's just the way it is. Yep. Unless you're on, a farm with a bunch of does and you're on doe mission or something like that. But on a target animal, like a lot of people are looking for a mature buck, how many shots are you going to have this fall? It ain't going to be many.
Not many.
So you got to make sure you're ready when you get it.
Yeah, especially on a specific deer. Like if you got 1 buck, maybe 1,
maybe none,
maybe none,
maybe none.
You're lucky for 1,
maybe 2, but it's seldom more than a few.
Yeah, and the pressure on if you do get a second opportunity is even heavier.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like you got to really button it up and get moving in. But that's what's so awesome about bow hunting, though. It's so multi-layered, from just everything, going back to the episode we did last year, entry and exit, to mental preparation, to physical preparation, to wind, to, like you said, weather in general. Pressure. It's not easy to do, which is why it's so fun when it happens the right way.
It is a big chess match. It really is. And your heart and soul are in it because you're emotional about it. You're passionate about it. And there's a lot of feelings that come in along with all this stuff. It's easy to get disappointed. It's easy to get down. And sometimes that's where you have to kick yourself in the butt as well. If you blow a stock or spook an animal, or, you can't let that ruin the rest of the season or the rest of the day or whatever it is. Like, that's gonna happen. Some of the best hunters I know, it's much like a closer in baseball. The best closers have a very short memory because they're going to blow saves, and they can't let that blown save carry into the next game, or then they're done, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with spooking a deer or missing a shot. Don't let that carry into your next hunt, or you're really in trouble. So you have to have a very short memory in this game, in my opinion. Granted, you got to remember those mistakes and try to correct them, but don't let it bring you down mentally to the point that you can't perform the next time.
Right. That's good advice. Yeah. It's tough, man. That's what's fun about it, though. I mean, really, if you went out and kill a deer every time, it wouldn't be near as fun, and we wouldn't have a podcast if that was the case.
Right. Yeah. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. We'd have 10 episodes and it'd be done.
So do you have some target animals in mind, or for this fall? I'm hoping you have something in Wyoming, or you got anything, or do you know what size animal are you hunting in Wyoming? I'd say
I would like to see myself get on a 170 buck or better. Will see.
That's a big mule deer. It's a big mule deer.
I just want something that looks like, I mean, that 160 mark's going to test me. Our buddy Ross Bigger shot a 160 buck, and it's a beautiful mule deer. Like that's what, like, to me, I want a good representation of a good mule deer. But from talking to all my buddies on this tag I drew, they're like, in your unit, you know, I'd probably, like we were talking about, I need to get married to something, get married to a 170 or better.
Nice.
And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try and do that. You know, I'm going with one of my mule deer idols. And I told him, I said, man, if you tell me something, I'm going to absorb it and learn and listen. So if he's like, hey man, let's wait, I'm waiting. You know, I'm going in as green as I can on a mule deer hunt with who I consider an expert. And my buddy Clint Casper's going with, he's killed some giant muleys. And I'm going to just be between those guys, absorbing as much information as I possibly can from where they're looking, how they're approaching certain things in the mountains, and what they think, what type of caliber buck we can go in on. So I will say I'd like to kill 170 or better. I'll get married to that right now on the podcast.
I'll make this prediction that you're going to learn is it a week-long hunt? How long is it?
We're going to go 5 days. If I have to stay 9-10 days, we're going to do it.
Okay. So week plus or minus, I'll make this prediction. You're going to learn more in that period of time, not only about mule deer, but just yourself and then whitetails and how to hunt them as any week-long period you've ever had. That's the thing that I love about mule deer hunting. You watch them on TV and you go, man, they just stand there. You know, they don't seem, you know, whitetails are constantly running, you know, tail up, they're fleeing.
Yeah.
Mule deer have taught me so much about white-tailed deer, and it's made me a better hunter because you know the game's there and you've got to try and get to them. Whereas whitetails, you're letting them come to you predominantly. And in mule deer in a spot and stalk situation, you're taking the game to them. And I'm here to tell you, you're not as good as you think you are until you try stalking on a mule deer buck. I mean, those suckers are hard, man. I mean, it is hard to get in on them, whether you have wind cover or you know, enough cover in general to get in there on them. I learned so much about myself and my abilities in those, you know, 15 plus years that I've been going to Alberta hunting with Corey Jarvis. And it's just amazing what other hunting experiences can teach you that you can bring back home and make yourself better at home. And my mule deer hunts annually have made me better on whitetail deer.
Well, I'm looking forward to that then, because I'm going in as just, I'm going to learn as much as I can. And I know I'm going to learn a ton. So that makes it more exciting. And I can see what you're saying. You know, it's a different type of hunting, but I think it's cool to just go somewhere new, go for a different species than the normal Illinois, Iowa whitetails, and kind of get that notch of experience and just knowledge under my belt, and kind of builds me as a hunter in general.
You're going with the right people too. So
I'm going with, I mean, great friends, but knowledgeable friends. Like I highly respect them in the mule deer game. So. And
killers. I mean, they have a track record of killing really big deer consistently. So that means a lot, regardless of what you're doing, elk, mule deer, whitetails, turkey, whatever. When a guy's got a resume, you know that you're going to learn a lot on that trip, you know.
Devin's got, I mean, he killed, we did a podcast called The Cemetery Buck. I think that buck was 230, I can't remember, 230s. He's got a 224 or something like that, and one just over 200. And Clint's got a bunch of DIY over the counter Colorado 190 muleys, and so, not a bunch.
That is so tough to do. That is so tough to do.
They're nuts.
They're spending some time, and they're paying their dues.
That's why I'm just gonna be that. I'm the intern, man. I'm just gonna soak it all in and learn from them.
That's a smart approach. I'm telling you, it'll make you a better whitetail hunter too.
Yeah.
Just understanding what mule deer do on a daily basis. I mean, they feed all night, then they're going back to bed, and then in the evening they're getting up out of their bed and trickling down. And the difference between them and whitetails are doing the same damn thing. But mule deer, you get to see it often because it's big country. You can look across the canyon and watch what they do. Yeah. Whitetails, it's, they're all hidden and secretive, and you don't get to see that. But it helps you become a better whitetail hunter, just understanding what deer do on a daily basis.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm excited for it because I don't even know, like, I mean, I've mule deer hunted in Oregon a little bit, but it was more open hill country, I guess, in a way. But I'm excited for this because I'm excited to learn how to look for them. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see, like, where, okay, we're going to set up here in glass. Like, well, where are you looking and why? Like, I'm excited to learn just like even that fairly basic stuff, but maybe not. Maybe it's not basic. I don't know yet, but I'm excited to learn like that process. Okay. Then we find one. How the hell do we get over there? And what's the game plan? I'm excited for that because it's just different than the Midwest. Cause like you said, you don't get to do that. You don't get to spot a whitetail bedded.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never snuck up on a bedded whitetail in Illinois.
Ever. Occasionally you might get the chance, but you're going to blow it when you get close, most likely.
Right, yeah.
On a whitetail.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a trick, man. I love mule deer hunting. It's awesome. And it's just where they live is so beautiful, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's gorgeous. Anytime you're mule deer hunting, you're somewhere pretty generally. So
yeah,
I wish luck on that. I hope you do well. I hope you learn a bunch, and I hope you get to kill a nice mature mule deer. I mean, it'll be cool if you're able to.
Yeah. Bottom line, I mean, $170, I would be overly thrilled. You know what I mean? But I say that I'm married to that. I would be thrilled with an opportunity at a mature mule deer, not killing one. I've never killed one with my bow, so I'm not going to go in cocky.
Sure.
So
go have a good time. Let your heart be your guide, and you'll do fine.
Yeah, and what I'm excited about truly is I get to hunt on my dad's birthday out there, which is September 3rd, and my birthday is the 6th. So,
that's cool.
So I'm hoping I could kill one on my dad's birthday. Would be like
awesome.
A dream come true, you know.
I'll bet you it's raining and snowing and winds blowing 50 miles an hour. Yeah, good luck, Curt.
Yeah. Like, you wanted to test, huh? You got cocky. I heard you on that podcast. Yeah, that's what'll happen.
So probably. No, he's with you, right?
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be a damn good time.
Hell yeah, that's gonna be awesome.
So, Dougie, you got a whitetail you're?
I got one I'm after, so we'll see how it goes. I still got to do a lot of scouting and get some stands up here.
Yeah. I have 2 whitetails I'm hoping to see on 2 different places that I'm hoping could be up there in the numbers, but I don't want to throw anything out.
Yeah, we're not throwing numbers out.
Yeah. What about you, Mark? I know you said you got the one that you never caught up with, but
yeah, it kind of went MIA there in December sometime. So I'm hoping he shows back up. That Missouri buck may not be with us anymore. I don't know what happened to him, but I didn't get any more pictures. We didn't find his shed, so I don't know. There's a couple deer in Iowa that I'm hoping, grow some. But do I have a number one target? Not per se. There's one that if he's around, he would definitely be my number one target, but he's kind of sporadic. He doesn't stay on the farm a lot based on pictures the last 2 years. So he's going to be a tough one to run into, but you just never know what's going to blow though either. I have a lot of different satellite farms. I used to always have just one big monstrous farm. Now I've got an 80 here and an 80 there and whatnot. And they have a way of always ending up, providing something that gets us really excited. So we'll see what the cameras look like. I don't have them out, but they'll be going out here soon.
Awesome. I don't have mine out yet. I just was getting them out of the garage and making sure batteries were good and all that. So I'm pretty excited to see what's coming in. Do you think like this has been a pretty wet summer? Do you think that has a huge impact on like antler growth?
It does. It definitely does. Because those plants that they're consuming,
Mhm.
you know, anytime from when those antlers fall off into spring green up and then on in through the summer as they finish out, those are nutrient transfers from the soil into their body. And the more rainfall that they're getting and the more young plants that are growing, that's a direct nutrient transfer from the soil into their body. So if you think of it in worst case scenario, drought, dry, stemmy, nasty, well, what nutrients are being transferred in their body?
Yeah.
As opposed to, you know, one where you're getting an inch every week and there's young green clovers and legumes and stuff all over the place for them, and it's lush. You know, it does make a huge difference, actually.
Yeah, I think so, just from what I can see. But, you know, I mean, I've been able to cut my grass in like 2 weeks, it seems like. So I might have a big buck bed in my yard as I'm about to put it in the CRP program.
Yeah, right.
I get home and I'm like, no, it's raining again. I can't mow my grass. So, so maybe I'll kill one there.
Yeah, well, hopefully. But you know, and it's not a big difference. Like the thing I have noticed in drouthy years, like they don't finish out real well. They're a little stubbier, a little more, you know, just don't look like long tines. They're also more brittle in drouthy years. You'll see a lot more breakage in years that are you know, with droughts where they don't have the nutrient transfer. But you take a wet year, and we've had a decently wet year, although we went through a dry period there from mid-May to mid-June. But you take a wet year, you generally don't see nearly the breakage. So that also goes back to that. Does it help? Of course it does. And it helps with the density of the antlers as well.
I never thought about the breakage. I never even thought to pay attention.
I didn't either. I thought they just,
it makes me, I just thought like, they got a little more aggressive. I never really considered that as a thing.
Of course, they can break them whenever they want. But if you watch really drouthy year, look what the racks look like in December, man. They get all shattered.
Wow, I'll have to pay attention to that. I never even thought about it.
It crossed my mind.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah,
it does make perfect sense. Just one thing you never think about. I feel as I get a little more knowledge, I mean, like with food plots and stuff, you start to attribute certain things from one type of the year to another type of the year. But on a basic level, it's hard to compare things from May to January that they could be in relation, but it makes sense. They definitely do.
Oh yeah, 100%. Everything makes a difference with whitetails. Everything does.
Yeah.
Just stress they go through, you know, or if they had an injury the previous year that you're unaware of, you know, they could have got horned from another buck and got an infection in their leg. And then all of a sudden the next year, they're not even close to what you expected them to be.
Yeah.
They get nagging little injuries that affect antler growth all the time. So it's not always just about rainfall. There's a lot of other things that can affect it.
It's almost like turkey's just not as bad. Everything's against them.
Everything.
Except for hawks.
Except for hawks.
It is. You know, it is, you're turning the tables on nature to get a deer to 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
You know, and then have him healthy and have a great rack. I mean, it takes a slot machine all lining up to get a 6-year-old that's in great shape, great health, and he optimizes rack. He's as big as he's ever been, because there's a lot of reasons working against that happening.
Definitely. Hey, I think we've covered a ton on this podcast, but before I forget, what's Taylor doing?
Well, we were just spent a week together, 10 days on our family vacation.
Yeah.
And she's back in Utah. So
gotcha.
Her and Austin are there, and
she won't record with us, so I got to ask you how she's doing.
Yeah, we got to talk to you about it.
She's great. I told her, I was like, I'm getting ready to go on with working class, and I'm going to call you. And she goes, they always give us trouble and say we won't come on. She goes, we'll come on. And I go, well,
I know she will.
I'll call her. I'll see if she answers.
It's kind of part of the gimmick at this point, because Taylor did our podcast early on, like I think in our 40s, and then ever since then, it's kind of.
See if she answers. Can't see it hardly. Unavailable. She
knew.
Oh, bless her heart.
Bless her little heart.
No, it's actually, I know she'll do the podcast. I just think it's funny to give her and Austin hell when we see him about it.
Yard guy is here. They're getting some landscaping done. Tell Curt, thanks so much for the invite.
See, it goes back. It's like it's our relationship there.
I said calm, and she said no.
Perfect. Well, that's funny.
I shouldn't have warned her. She probably would have picked up, but she knows we're doing this.
Oh, she would have killed us though too. Throw it on the video podcast unannounced. That's funny.
Well, FaceTime. I don't know whether she got ready today or not. So sometimes FaceTime declines have nothing to do with other than I'm not made up or whatever. You know.
I'm not gonna lie. If somebody FaceTimes me 9 times out of 10, I'm ignoring it.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I try to pick up because I'm always curious. I wonder what they want, you know?
Well, it depends. If I don't know. It depends where I'm at. If I'm with my buddies and someone FaceTimes me, I'm going to answer it. But I think it's kind of weird. I don't know. Maybe it is weird. Like Steve FaceTimes people a lot. I was never into that. I feel like it's weird.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just old school, like just call me.
I don't know. Yeah.
Or text me.
Maybe I should do it more. Maybe I'm a bad friend. Maybe I'm learning something about myself right now.
Maybe
you FaceTime your buddies a lot, just in general?
No. The person I FaceTime the most is Taylor.
That makes sense, though.
Tracy and I FaceTime her all the time because she's in Utah. We're here in Iowa. Yeah. So we want to see her and talk to her, and it helps keep you connected. But I don't FaceTime. I FaceTime my mother once in a while as well.
That makes sense, too.
Somebody that I want to see, you know.
But, like, are you going to call Wade up and FaceTime him?
We do FaceTime a lot. Like if I'm one part of the farm and he's another, and we want to show or like, you know, if there's a new pond going in or a plot or a blind or whatever, we do FaceTime a lot. Actually, Wade and I do, but it's always work related. It's never, hey, what's going on, man? You know,
hey, buddy. Blowing kisses at each other, nothing weird like that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Mark, I appreciate doing the podcast again. This was fun. I like the mental deep talk. It's always enjoyable.
It was. I enjoyed it, and hopefully it was, you know, something that people pull something from. I know you said they liked the one about the summer scouting. I know we didn't get into like killing deer as much, but honestly, this side may be more important than all the rest of it, in all honesty.
I think this podcast almost should have happened before the last podcast as a part 1 and part 2.
Yeah.
But if you haven't heard that episode, which it's 380, listen to this, go and tune into that one. I think they could probably be butted up next to each other. You know, the one episode, the prep, and the other one's more in the woods for the deer type podcast. So
yeah, absolutely.
We should have you ready to go for the season then.
Yeah, those are the only 2 episodes you need for the year.
Really?
And then you
stop listening to the podcast.
Shut the rest of ours off. That's all you need. So,
man, I want to do something really special prior to turkey season next year. We texted about it and joked about it, but I'd love to get some of these. You could do a series with these turkey killers, man. There's guys that are just absolutely eat, sleep, and breathe turkey hunting and turkey calling, and they would make great guests for you.
I have an idea, and we'll talk after we get done recording, but I have an idea for that.
I can't wait.
I just thought of it. It might be a great idea, but it might be absolutely horrible. But I think it's a good idea right now. And I've only drank like a beer. So
it's got to be all right.
It's got to be a better idea than it normally would have been if I would have drank 5 beers. You know?
Right, exactly. Isn't it amazing the stuff you come up with when you're half drunk? And then the next day you go, that's a terrible idea.
I
can't do that.
I got to give myself credit because I feel like when I do get drunk or we get drunk as a group, which is dangerous, we think of ideas that actually are pretty good ideas 40% of the time.
There you go.
Not bad.
A little less than half.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
It's not bad for how many drunk ideas we have. Well, that's batting pretty good, you know.
Who's up next? What are the guests you got coming on that's got to be hard. Like, how do you keep rolling with guests? I mean, as many podcasts as you've done, like that can't be easy to keep that guest list, you know, interesting.
I actually find it fairly easy, to be honest. Like we're running out of time. Like I was telling you, we're double booking day, like podcast days. So we're doing 2 in a row sometimes because, you know, we can't always record on like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Like I would love to do 3 a week, but just with our work schedules and family and stuff, we just don't have the time. So, you know, we have a baby due. By the time this airs, I'll probably be at home with the newborn baby. But so we've been double recording to kind of be in preparation for that, for maybe a little time off, but also to just get people we want to get on during the summer. But we have a trad podcast coming up, traditional bow hunting podcast.
Nice.
With a bunch of our friends that'll be in studio. We actually have Greg and Casey are coming in.
Right on.
We
Awesome.
have Larry McCoy from Outdoor Group will be in. And we have, well, here, I mean, I don't want to give away our whole calendar, but we're booked all the way into October now. And then I quit.
Oh, no kidding. Awesome.
Yeah, I quit booking. I quit booking into October because it's hard to stick to a schedule once hunting season's here because weather and kill. Like if somebody kills, we want to be able to do a podcast that week about the kill almost as in real time as we possibly could. But I mean, we're booked all the way into.
And Eric's gonna have a baby here soon.
And Eric's got a baby due October 10th. So yeah, we're booked. We're straight into the first week of October.
I think Casey's got a baby due October 15th.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Terrible timing, boys. But
my wedding anniversary is October 21st.
Your wedding anniversary is? Yeah, but Tracy's a saint.
She is a saint, but but back then all I thought about was turkeys, and I was like, I picked the date because I'm like, every year we're going to have fall coloration, and that's why I picked it. But
yeah,
little did I know, that many years ago that we'd be this into the deer stuff. So
yeah, well, I'm sure it probably evens out somewhere, right? Like she makes you pay for it somewhere.
No, like you said, she's a saint. I mean, she's awesome. Like I'd be lost without Tracy.
I gotta say, Mark, she's cooler than you are.
She is. That much I know. And she can outdrink me too.
I was like, I don't know. This sounds bad for any of my buddies that I'm friends with that their wives are friends with us. Like, your buddy's girl is never as cool as you hope she is. Is that fair?
True. That's true.
I mean, not always. See, here I am. I'm getting in trouble. Not always. That doesn't always be true. But usually you're kind of like, don't bring her around. But I feel like Tracy's pretty damn cool. And I know she doesn't listen to these podcasts. Or, I mean, if she does, I don't know why. But so we're not kissing her ass just to kiss her ass. But that's how I feel when I met her.
I won't disagree. She's an amazing, amazing person. Yeah, I'd be lost without her. And Terry likewise would be lost without Willa. We're both very, very lucky to have these two ladies in our lives.
I'm lucky to have my wife. She lets me do a lot of awesome stuff. Like my wife's the same as well. Like my wife is about ready to pop and she's at home with a sick 2-year-old and I'm here recording. Like she's like, do your thing, Doug, how's your girl?
Oh, she's great. She's just non-existent. So
she's awesome. But
I got no babies to do. So deer hunting's looking good.
No, you're wide open in October.
Yeah. Right.
Future's bright, huh?
Gotta put my shades on.
Future's so bright, I gotta wear them inside. Oh, we're idiots, Mark. I don't know why you do this with us, man, but we appreciate it.
I love doing it, man. You guys are the best. Really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Of course. Well, let's see if we can do another one before fall, because I know how it is once season catches up, you're gone. So but if we don't do one before fall, best of luck to you. I think we will. We'll figure one out.
Yeah, we'll figure one out or do it during fall sometime or impromptu calls late at night that I pick up.
It's amazing. When that happens, I get more compliments about episodes. They're like, dude, you just get Mark Drury on like middle of recording. That's so awesome. I'm like, he's cool, man. We're buddies. So it works out.
I love it. I enjoy it. It's good. I love talking about hunting.
We need to get Chase, you and Chase, and a couple other guys to come to the studio one day in the next year and come in and do an in-studio podcast.
That'd be badass, wouldn't it? We
got the setup here. We got the bedrooms. I
built my own though. See him.
Or we come there.
There you go.
There you go. It's not that far.
It's really not.
It's not. I think it's about 3.5. It's not that far.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's straight shot, man.
Yep.
Straight shot. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate it. You want to say anything before we close out?
No, I mean, anybody that wants to keep up with us can do so on social media through Instagram or Facebook or anywhere at Drury Outdoors, or obviously jump into DeerCast and you get all things Drury all the time, and that algorithm and DeerCast track. And we mentioned it earlier, but DeerCast is really just, it's been it's grown beyond our wildest imagination. It's really, really been well received. And we thank everybody out there that has done that. So.
Yeah, it's a great tool. And then real quick, so I don't know if you guys posted on DeerCast, but I know on your Instagram, remember we talked about the $2 with the big flyer drop time thing?
Cool.
That's worth going to your guys' Instagram and checking out. So our buddy Cole Young shot a buck with a giant flyer, and then one of your guys killed a buck that looks, they're brothers.
It's weird.
Well, not only that, it wasn't just the flyer, it was the shape of the tines and the forks,
splits,
the splits and the length of the tines. And I'm like, this is uncanny how much these two look alike. It's crazy because I think you contacted me and go, hey, where'd you get that velvet buck that's on our social media pages, you know?
Trail cam footage and velvet.
Trail cam video.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not sure. Let me check. So I reached out and I was like, hey, where'd that video come from? And they said, well, it was Kyle Moore's from 2018. It came out of our server at the studio. And I sent you that. And you go, well, not the same buck. Then you sent me the one your buddy killed in 2020. I was like, holy cow. Then we did a little investigative reporting. You and Taylor and the social team started, comparing notes about where the hell, how far were they about 120 miles apart, as I recall?
Roughly. Yeah. And I'm like, I looked at it. I'm like, I texted Cole, who had shot that buck. He named it Tomahawk because the big tomahawk coming off the beam. And I'm like, hey, go to Drury's Instagram. Is that your buck? And he's like, he called me. He's like, no, that's not it. And I'm like, are you sure? I'm like, look at that trail cam video. He's like, oh, maybe it is. He was, can you find out where that came from? I was like, let me text Mark and Taylor and we'll get to the bottom of it. And so it just was crazy. They're the same deer pretty much. So,
I mean, they are. And you could see like 2 8s that resemble each other.
Right.
When you add the fork and then the drop tine,
two forks.
Yeah, 2 forks, and you add the drop tine, it makes it so unlikely. It's 1 in a billion that these two look this much alike. It's crazy.
We need to get them both in the studio with both the mounts in the studio,
like really compare them,
and have them hanging next to each other and do a video podcast about it.
Yeah. It'd be pretty cool, honestly.
That'd be really cool. We'll get connected with them guys because I mean, hell, that would just be cool to see. It'd be cool to just get side by side footage of the mounts next to each other alone.
It is, and if you think about like all the bucks you've ever seen, it's not often where you go, oh, that buck looks just like that buck. They're all their own unique works of art, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing how wildly different they all look, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's the best part about them.
It is. It's awesome.
Well, cool. So if you guys haven't seen that, get on the Drury Instagram and go check that out. And then we have actually the trail cam footage of Cole's buck making a scrape on our Instagram and all that. Right. So it's pretty awesome.
It's pretty cool.
So, well, cool. Well, thank you so much, Mark. We always appreciate you having you on and giving us the opportunity to conversate with you and teach us all something. So, Doug, you got anything?
Thanks, Mark, and everybody get mentally prepared.
That's right.
Slow that game down.
Yep.
Slow the game down. You know what to do. Go shoot your bow, please.
All right, guys.